Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to talk about one of the gems of Milford, the one we never really think about too much. But it's amazing over the years. The level of service that we've set at our library is unmatched. You know, during the pandemic, we'll talk about it tonight, a lot of places closed. I don't think we closed more than a few days the whole time. When we looked at the services we offered, the renovations, the last renovation we were doing, Milford was debating how big of a renovation to do, while on the other side of the papers were talking about towns around us losing their accreditation because they couldn't fund the library. So we're going to hear about what's going on at the library. If you have kids, you know the library. But even if you don't, I mean, I just found out there's a new program that I'm looking forward to taking my grandson down to play Legos. But there's a lot of things going on in that. I don't know if we can call it a library anymore, the media center, what do you call it?
I would call it a library, and it's a community center. A library is just the umbrella name for it.
Okay. So let's start with an introduction.
Well, hi, I'm Sue Edmonds, and I am the director of the Milford Town Library. And I've been the director for the last 13 years. I started in July of 2008. Yes, it's gone very quickly, yes. And we offer a wide variety of services. And I think the proudest moment that I have for the library and the staff is how we came through the pandemic. I mean, it's still going on, but we made a conscious effort to stay open as many hours as we could during the first part of the pandemic, and also provide night service and Saturday service through this whole almost 2 years.
People ask a basic question. In today's digital age, why do we need a place to house books?
Well, it's housing books, but also it's access to digital resources. Once again, not everybody can afford the books or the digital DVDs or the databases on their own, and it is rather expensive, and the library is a place where you can get all the information and do it efficiently, because not every database is easy to use. We know things about reference books or places to look that a person just won't know when they're starting their research. And also, we're a place that people can come, and especially during the pandemic, I think we were a safety net for a lot of people. We were open, and a lot of libraries would not allow browsing, and we did. We had a lot of people come in and use a computer for their daily lives. They had to pay their bills, they had to do a lot of things, or even apply for jobs. And also, with the browsing, people were allowed to go up and down the aisles and just think and get away from all the stuff that was happening with the pandemic or their lives, and they could sit and browse and decide what they wanted to read.
But I thought that was half the fun of going into a library, is not having I mean, if I want a book, I could call ahead.
Not everybody wants that. Not everybody's comfortable using our online catalog.
That's what I'm saying. If I go to the library, the fun was walking through the stacks and finding a book that, you know, I guess like today when you flip through Netflix or whatever and all of a sudden you come across a movie, I'd like to watch that one.
Well, a lot of people's lives, a lot of other industries are using curbside. So they go out on the computer, they pick it, and they just pick it up. So they don't have the opportunity to go in and look and feel, almost like going to a department store. You feel the cloth, you look and see if you like that, you go over there. And that is what a lot of people were missing during the pandemic. They were not being able to relax and be able to go on their own and spend some time not worrying about their lives. So we were we felt it was very important that people could walk in, they had to wear their masks, but they could spend all the time at night, on Saturdays and weekdays, so they can enjoy the library.
Well, paint us a picture, pre-pandemic and today.
We were a little bit more active in certain areas because we had more seating. But when the pandemic hit, we had to say, how can we still provide service but keep everybody safe? So like a lot of libraries are reduced seating. A lot of people reduced the hours. Or what they were afraid of is that before everybody started getting the vaccines, that ill people would come in and spread it. So we closed our doors, but we, in a lot of libraries, started curbside, where you used the online catalog, you requested your books, and we would get them within our library, or we request books through other libraries and take the bag and we put it outside and you would just pick it up. There was a time in March of 20, and nobody is really allowed in the library, or we had services till about May of 20. We had over 800 bags of items go out that was stuck in the library for those several months. So
800.
800 bags. And we used up a lot of bags. They're the little brown bags, yeah. And now we still offer those services, but people are feeling more comfortable. They're coming in, and I think they have a sense of control, being able to walk in and deciding what they want to look at, or if they need help with research or using our computers. There's a lot of people that, and I think it's going to happen, they're not going to have the money for computers or cable. I mean, everybody talks about how the prices are increasing. And we're going to go back to where it was like in 08 and 09, in the Great Recession, where we had a lot of business because people didn't have the money to pay for these resources.
Well, we had to expand the electric footprint back then.
Yeah, we did that in 2013 and 2014. So what happened is I added more outlets, electrical outlets, which enabled a lot of people to come in and use our Wi-Fi. We expanded that, we expanded...
Yeah, you put in the fancy Wi-Fi at that time too.
Yeah, now we have, it's outside too because of the pandemic. We figured, like a lot of libraries, we had to provide more resources when we were closed. So now you can use our Wi-Fi out in the parking lot, in the patron parking lot, outside in the steps, and also in our staff parking lot. You have access. We increased our area of coverage.
Is it still a primary need for a lot of people?
Yes, and it doesn't matter economically where you are. We do have a lot of people come in, a lot of English as second language learners. They come in we have started our ESL program again. It's small because we have to keep social distancing, but we are getting 12 to 13 people a week. And what we're doing there, and also, a lot of people, again, the senior citizens don't have the money. And also you may have the money to have cable or internet, but you really don't need all the books that we have. You only need it to look up Sacco and Vanzetti for a term report. You don't need to buy all the books.
Yeah, but isn't a lot of it too, I mean, we have a large part of Milford that needs the economic help. But then you got a lot of people who need the companionship. Mm-hmm. I think of some of the older people, and these are the people who built Milford. I mean, the reason the library is there is because of them. It'd still be the Spruce Street School to a lot of us.
And a garage, yeah.
I never had I don't remember the garage. I just remember the school.
Yeah.
But then again, that was 6th grade, so. But I think about the success that Sue Clark's had down at the senior center. It's people of all different economic strata, of wide range of ages. I mean, we were going through last night at the town meeting talking about expanding the exercise room.
We have staff members that go down there and use that exercise room and take Tai Chi.
Yeah, I got to admit, I mean, I was wrong, because when you told me that 70 and 80-year-olds, now again, I wasn't close to 70 like I am now. So, to me, it's like, they're doing Zumba, they're doing Tai Chi. Wait a minute. But apparently that's been, growing every year. And now we're doing another $100,000 to finish the last part of the senior center.
Well, they've got some exercise equipment down there. They've got the machines. People love it.
And they're together. It's Milfordians together. And that, like when I used to watch the Great Wave from Stacy.
It's still there.
It seemed like this wave of kids just flowing over to the library.
Well, pre-pandemic, we would have 40 to 50 children there between 2:30 and 6. Right now, we simply just can't do it. And a lot of people have gotten out of the habit, unfortunately, of just going home and social distancing. It's going to come back. We're starting to get more students back. I don't know if I want it up to 50 and 60 again, because it was just more social than anything. And I'd love to see it back again, but right now we simply can't do it. I think everybody's striving to provide the best service they can and keep everybody safe. And I don't know if we found that balance yet.
Yeah, but you know something, being selfish, when I see 50 kids in the library, it feels better than 50 kids on the wall.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Some of it, you know, some kind of osmosis or something, the education is going to filter in, and if nothing else, they'll learn to behave.
We do our best.
No, I mean, they're kids.
Yeah.
I mean, expecting teenagers to come in and sit at Sunday school, little House on the Prairie, that's not reality.
No. That's why in the renovation in 06 and 07, they decided that the young adult room would be downstairs in the lower floor in the back. And I feel it was an excellent idea, because it allows them the freedom to talk, to do things that if they're up in the main library, it'd just be too confusing and too chaotic.
Well, 50 kids, by definition, are going to make too much noise for the adults upstairs.
No, I think it's one of the better things they did. And the renovation was done before. I inherited the renovation, so I had a few things to do at the end. But yeah, I thought that was one of the better ideas that came out of the renovation. It really helped everybody out.
And then it also doesn't stigmatize kids who don't have computers. Because you're in the library. What are you doing? I'm bored. I'm going to go play on the computer. It's not like I can't do my homework at home because I don't have a computer.
Yeah. We're probably partnering with Memorial School. We just started talking about it today, where they're going to have, and November 14th, they're going to have a family reading time. So the people who don't really read to their children, they have an opportunity to get library cards. They'll have the opportunity to learn about what we can provide, for their children and for them, ESL classes or whatever they need. And I think it's a great opportunity to get us more out in that part of the community.
Well, I think that's great, because like when my daughter was growing up, we were there all the time for that family reading night. And you saw a lot of people who truly loved and cared for their kids, just didn't understand English. So they couldn't read to them in English. But you'd see them there religiously. To have one of your staff members, Dad, it's the woman with the white hair.
Yes, she's happily retired and enjoying it. Sue Ellen Zemansky.
Sue Ellen was just an icon there. It was always, Dad, it's the lady with the white hair. She reads to us.
She stops by periodically to say hello.
That's good, Dee. So what else is new and exciting at the library? I'm tempted to hear about Legos.
Legos, what it is, it's a club, and we have Legos that were donated to the library, and we've purchased some. And you sign up. Before, we would just throw everything out on the floor and you play. Now we have registration for social distancing, and we set up tables, and they have Legos on the table, and you play with them. And you create whatever you want to.
These are plain old Legos.
Plain old Legos.
Kind of like the old Lincoln logs.
Yeah, we were talking, yeah.
Because my grandson now is into this Star Wars Lego thing. It comes with a book.
Yeah.
And a box of pieces. I'm amazed when I think of Legos. Never this sophisticated.
And then the other thing that we're doing is something called the Library of Things. A lot of the libraries are promoting that now. It's things besides books. You can get a ukulele. We have STEM projects. You can get a Nintendo 3 or 4 to play your games. You can borrow. We got a Geiger counter, and one of those things that's used for you go look for stuff on the beach.
Oh, the metal detector.
Metal detector, that's the word. See, I'm getting to the point where I have to go, yeah. It's happening.
I was going to say, if I'm using a Geiger counter and I find stuff, I'm nervous.
Yeah, that's true. But we have, you can do your wattage. You can see what the kind of wattage you have in your house, and monitor that. And it has various levels of circulation, how many weeks and whatever. We also have hotspots. That's another thing. We did it through the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. It was part of the Recovery Act for COVID. And we have 10 hotspots that you can rent. You can borrow from us for a week, and with T-Mobile, and you can use them all over. I've used them up in New Hampshire, where I've used it for my computer and my phone. I switch it on, it's battery powered, or you can hook it up to the wall, and you've got it for a week.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And again, a lot of people don't have access, have internet access. They can borrow it for a week. And if you don't bring it back, we can conveniently deactivate it.
Oh, that's right. You can just shut off.
We can just shut it off. So if people feel that they can keep it longer than we can just shut it off. We also have Roku's. Allows you to look at Netflix or Hulu, and you.
I can borrow a Roku?
Yeah, we have 4 of them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Again, I think the biggest accomplishment we've done in the last 18 months is that we stayed open and we provided Milford with the best service that was available.
Why is it, and I'm very happy that you've led the charge over the decades, but why Milford? What makes it so special that we stayed open 50 out of 52 weeks?
Yeah, I think just the people who work there, and they're dedicated. They always want to help. And I think also with the Board of Library Trustees and myself, we all worked together and said, we know we have a bad situation, but at the same time, we have to provide the best service we can to Milford. And we also provided the service to Mendon and the Hopedale, all the other surrounding towns where those libraries were not open. They may have had curbside service, but they had limited hours. And we said, until it gets really bad, I think we can do this. Because I think that's what Milford needs.
Now, curbside. I call ahead, I get a burger and Coke, but
basically, yeah.
What is curbside at a library?
Well, again, you use the online catalog through CWMRs. And you would go through and see where the books are available. You made a reserve. And then when the books either came in from the other libraries, or if we had it available with us, we put it in a brown bag, check it out to you, and you would pick it up curbside. Some people, because it was winter time, we'd take it right out to the car, or we had a table in the foyer that allowed you to pick it up. You had your name on it, and you had your books in there, the checked out books. And we also had people call us up and say, I want mysteries about cats. And we would have someone at the reference department or somebody in the children's department
Research.
go and find them. And we would call you back and say, well, we've got this and that. We can get this from another library. What would you like? And the same thing, we checked them out on their cards and put them outside for them to pick up. People still do it, but it's not as, it's limited. We make it 2 or 3 a week now instead of, there was a time we were doing 30, 40 a day.
Really?
Yeah. And then, like I said, from March of 20 to about June 1st of 20, nobody could come in. And we started having people come back because we were all in the skeleton crew. So we started having people come up on staggered hours, and we worked it so that, we could get those people what they needed.
Were we able to keep our staff?
Yes. That was another big thing I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure everybody was working the 35 hours. And also we staggered it so that we had coverage. I mean, in the beginning, no, we all didn't work all the hours. Everybody was in a panic in the beginning. And then slowly we started having people come in. Because certain jobs in the library and any other place, you can't do remotely. And I wanted people to work and feel comfortable and still give the service.
You mean like stackers?
The pages or circulation. Or, circulation, you can't really check in and check out books if you can't get the product.
I just remember people spending days stacking books.
We still do that. The pages, we still get a lot of books coming in, more so than we did. People are coming physically, or we're letting them borrow them through the CWMR's library network. So,
now, distribution-wise, well, even more than that, procurement-wise, How does it level out now? It used to be all books, and then you got a tape that came in. And then you had 2 tapes. And then you got a couple other things. Today, how does it work, electronic versus paper?
I'd say it's still half and half.
Really?
Yeah, right now, last year, we had 21,000 circulations with ebooks. And that's through the CW Mars my library network. What we do is we pool our money throughout the library network. There's 147 of us. We pool our money and we buy ebooks that can be used throughout the network. And we have over 100,000 books available throughout the network for ebooks. Instead of coming in and checking out of the library, you put a hold in on the books at the CW Mars level, and we use Overdrive. They also have downloadable DVDs. And also with your card, you can also have access to we have something called Canopy, which is a streaming service, and you get to have 10 streaming DVDs a month. And it's the odd stuff. It's not the stuff you get on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime. And you can use your library card and you go over and pick what you want.
But now how does that, a book, I can sell you a book, you can loan it out. You need 3 books, I sell you 3 books. How does that work electronically?
Well, that's a big controversy right now, especially with consortiums. A lot of places say, I sell you the rights to the book for X amount of time, and then if people want to use it, you've got to buy several more copies of electronically. And that was the problem, is that I just want one copy. We can share it amongst ourselves, but if I want 10 people to use it, I have to buy an extra copy. And it's digital rights management, and who has, how they're willing to make the money.
How do you know? Okay, so I buy the license to a book. How does somebody take that? Do you download it to them?
Through the Overdrive, what we do is that you download it onto your device. It could be your phone, it could be your computer, it could be your laptop, whatever you use, and you have a certain amount of time, like a loan, 14 days. Let's say. And then what happens after that 14 days, if you can renew it if no one else wants it, but if someone else wants that book, it stops working.
So it's like Mission Impossible.
Yes, it
is. This book will self-destruct in 14 days.
Mm-hmm. And then a lot of the popular ones, they'll have holds, and we'll buy multiple copies of it. But then at the same time, he says, well, on each copy, you only can have 4 circulations. You have 30 people that want 5 copies. Past those 4 to 5 circulations for each copy, you're going to buy more. More licensing.
So how do they know?
There's a counter over at Overdrive that tells you, how many people, what you own, and how many people have already circulated it.
So they can come back and tell you that Gone with the Wind has been so many circulations.
And it's time you have to buy another copy, and you can't use it at all.
Because they can cut you off.
They can cut you off.
Oh, well, that seems more like, because I was always wondering, you put it on my tablet, I just copy it to another tablet.
No, there's a little counter in the code that says, no, you can't share like that. It's a direct relationship. It comes off the Overdrive app, and it comes down to your device, and that's it.
Oh, okay.
That's how they manage it,
I mean, legitimately, you don't want to slight the author, the publisher. They're due their money. But I always wondered, how is it, hand comes out of your DVD player and slaps you.
Almost. It just goes away.
So now how many, you're talking circulations that we do?
This past year, it was slight. We usually are up close to 200,000 a year with everything, either ebooks or the magazines, the paper.
200,000
around
transactions.
There, yeah. Right, this year we did about 126,000.
That's still, I mean, when you think we got 30,000 people, depends how you count it, but somewhere between 29 and 32,000 people. And that's an average of 6 per. That's,
Yeah, plus renewals. And what was, we had about 45,000 people walk in the library this past year. They walked in and used the library.
okay. Is there any other way of coming into the library without
No,
walking in?
well, they also would use it, digitally. They would come through our online catalog. They'd use the ebooks.
I hadn't thought about that, so I
Yeah.
can tap in from home.
Yeah, there has been a shift. 44,000 visits, there was enough people to come in and felt comfortable coming in.
But realistically, if you did ramp up to the 200, could you really comfortably handle that many right now?
Probably not. Circulations, because, you take out 10 books per person or whatever. We're getting back to that. I think people are still a little uncomfortable coming in. They've gotten used to accessing us digitally. People are a little still leery about vaccinations and how they feel about using, community space.
Well, I would think right now we're still, I'll say, we're still protective of our two tiny humans.
Yeah.
One's 6, one's 2. So when it comes down to the tiny humans, they can't get vaccinated yet. So we're still a little, let's face it, it's our life.
Yeah.
Once they get vaccinated, then I would imagine the kids section, the tiny humans, will start flowing back in.
We have, people use us a lot, but we have masks in the children's area and the YA area. And in the adult section, we request you wear masks. You don't have to, but we have some controversy. People feel, well, why don't everybody mask? I said, well, until the Board of Health tells me differently, I can't really.
I was going to say, how can you go against? You are a public employee.
Yeah.
You're a public manager of a municipal department. If the Board of Health of Milford says this black or white, don't you have to follow it?
Well, they haven't really said. They've been very reluctant to say that. So I can say we encourage masks for people that are using the adult area, especially if you're not vaccinated. But the Milford Board hasn't come and said, everybody needs to wear a mask like they've done in Boston or Brookline or Newton. I can't. So we request.
But can you ask somebody? I thought HIPAA would.
We can't. That's it.
'Cause I'm thinking, HIPAA violations, I'm not supposed to be able to discuss your health.
Yeah.
And asking somebody, do you have shots? Because, we're all focused on COVID-19, but the worry is we had a TB outbreak a couple years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. It scared everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, the Board of Health managed it. We increased the money to the VNA so that we could make sure the people were getting their medicine.
Yeah, all through this, I have worked with the Board of Health, and the trustees and I've worked with them. So we haven't done anything without their approval, or they have reviewed what we've been doing.
No, and the best you can probably get is to say, is that okay? Well, I'm not, it's like the FDA. The FDA very rarely says yay or nay.
Yeah.
It's more, well, we won't keep you from marketing that drug. Can't you just say yes? We at the FDA feel our position. Places like the FDA have never said in a clear sentence what they could say in a confusing paragraph.
When the positivity rate was around 5 or 6% a year ago, early January, we did close for the public. We were still there, but we closed to the public. But now at 1 or 2%, I don't see the reason why we have to be closed. We just have to be careful. Everybody has to be careful. I wear my masks when I go out in certain places, and other places I don't.
Well, back then we were still scared that it was contact exposure.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there was a part where they said, well, you've got to quarantine any book that comes in for a week, 2 weeks, 3 days. So then after a while they said only a day. That's why all our books are now out. We only get it through the book drop. No one gives anything inside.
Oh, really?
That was the reason we did that, because we would pick up those books, put them in an area in a children's program room, it became the quarantine room, and they'd sit there for a week. So we used to tell everybody, don't worry, you're not getting fines anyway.
Right.
So, it's going to happen. So slowly it got down to a day. Now we don't quarantine at all. In the beginning, everybody was scared. There was a lot of information out there and no one knew how to digest it. And we took the tack that we're going to do our best. We're going to stay open as long as we can. We're going to make sure that Milford has the services that they can get. I mean, we're now in September, we opened up 4 nights a week. Before then, it was only on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I mean, we're getting more activity at night. It's still quiet, but we're open. We're there. And that's the big thing, is that we're available, we're there for you.
Well, I think people overlook the fact that to a large part of Milford, the library is a convenience. To the other part, it's a dire necessity. Because like you say, unfortunately, not every home in Milford is affluent enough to have computers and internet and cable and dogs and cats and everything else.
Yeah. I'm proud of what the staff has done and working with the trustees. I think we got through the tough parts fairly well. We closed as we needed, but we were there. We gave people a safe space to hide from the outside world. They could come in, they could relax, they could do their computer work. We were a safety net that I think was very important for the last 18 months, even more so before March of 20.
Well, I remember we're coming up in a few months on tax season, and I was totally amazed at how many people used the library to go online and do their taxes.
And we have an AARP group that comes in and takes care of the taxes for the seniors.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we did it last year too. We worked it so that, and they were really good. We worked a system where everybody was socially distanced. We kept people, in spots where they could wait their turn, and it really worked really well. And the book sales, I mean, we decided, we usually had a book sale at the end of October, and it was packed with people. So what we did is that we had mini book sales, and we're still doing that. We have 4 coming up from now until December, right before Christmas, and we only would let 15, 20 people in, and it was more enjoyable. People weren't crawling under looking for books, and they weren't getting close to each other, and it worked out really well. So out of the pandemic, there's been some benefits for people and for the friends or the tax people. So I think it's worked out really well.
That's fantastic, because anybody who tries to do their own taxes now, God bless them. And we forget that a lot of the people in Milford are living on $1,300, $1,500 a month on Social Security. And you start shelling out a couple of hundred, or even 100. That's a pretty big chunk of their monthly income.
That could be food for the month.
Or meds.
Mm-hmm. Milford has always been, in my opinion, I grew up in upstate New York, and I lived in Somerville for about 20 years before. What I always liked about Milford is that, and like you always say, Milford takes care of its people. You do your best for your family, you do your best for your neighbors, and Milford has always supported the library. They may not want you to have, I can't have my own sauna in my office, I can't have my own private restroom, but they will make sure that the kids have a place to come. They have a place to read. People will have computers that work. And also, there will be books that people can take off the shelf and read. They can sit down and spend the day.
Well, if you remember, when we were trying to, and back then there was a lot of money, raise $1.4 million to renovate the library.
Yeah.
They were growling and snarling, and a couple of us are sitting in the back laughing, saying, this is the modus operandi. You're going to get people coming in, and they're going to say, this is terrible, we don't need it, so you're not going to help our kids? Of course we're going to help the kids. Oh, okay. And you just laugh, because the toughest, the big grizzly bears, unzip the coat, and out comes a Pooh Bear in the middle of course we're going to help our kids. Why are we here?
Yeah. Yeah, well, our latest project's going to be swapping out all the lights in the library for LEDs. We're taking, and that's what's happening with the, the article that's on special town meeting. We're working with National Grid, and we're going to try and stop the creep of electricity. It's not, everything's going to go up, but swapping out the lights that have been there since '08 and putting in the new LEDs and their, the whatever you have to do to use the LEDs, it's going to save us money in electricity and make it slower, because electricity and heat are the biggest expenses I have in the library.
Well, wasn't Larry saying that he was having a hard time buying, when Paul Revere put in some of our lights?
Yeah.
They were state of the art, but Larry can't find ye old light
find the
shop
parts.
anymore.
Yeah. The ballasts and everything, and Mike Nicholson, who's on the cultural subcommittee, and he works with us. Mike has been great with us. The whole cultural subcommittee has been great with us. But Mike wanted to do this to sort of show what can be done for the rest of the town, and I said, fine, I'll do it. I like it that people think that the library is a place where you can experiment and see if this will work at other parts of the town.
Michael has been great.
Yes.
He only has one major flaw. He hasn't admitted that he's going to be chairman one of these days.
Well, I would miss having him on my subcommittee.
We keep kidding him because he's done great for the library, great for the school. And he's saying, okay, is it time to be chairman yet? And he'll say, not yet.
That's what I've always, I live in Mendon, and this is what I've always liked about Milford, is that everybody works well. I mean, there's little discussions, but everybody's focused on making Milford a good place to live.
Well, we joke about the FinCom, and I always say it's the most influential, powerless people. We get one whole vote. When you think about the whole Finance Committee, 15 of us, and we get one vote out of 250 at town meeting. And what you really count on is that if you make the right pitch, town meeting has not been wrong very often. When you get that many people who love Milford, all thinking about it, of course it gets heated.
There's heated and there's heated.
But at the end, and it's always funny because people will come out and say, well, nothing ever gets turned down by the FinCom. It's like, you haven't been to the subcommittee meetings. What comes out of the subcommittee meetings has been beat and vetted so heavily that, at that point, it's very rare that the FinCom is going to be on the losing side of a recommendation. Because by then, we've either adapted or convinced the people that they don't have a prayer. I mean, the lights. $80,000 for lights, Sue?
Well, it was higher if we didn't have the...
the grant from 94?
The grant from National Grid. I learned a long time ago, if you want to be successful and make sure that your department works well, you've got to collaborate. And you cannot stand aside and say, well, the library's going to do this. You've got to work with FinCom. You've got to show that, it's for the team. And I've worked some places where they don't want to be part of the team, and I think that's sad because you get more with honey. And since I've been here, very few things I have not been able to do.
Well, I mean, when you came before the subcommittee and the FinCom and said, we're going to spend 80 grand right up front. Now we can finance it. And Zach came back and said, no, excuse me, we'll finance it ourselves.
Yeah.
We're in a position we can do that. Cool. So the financing's not an issue. And in some towns, that could be a real problem. And then it was, okay, the payback is 5.5 years, if I remember right. Okay, and then we totally forgot that in the budget, till I looked at the capital budget, there was an electric upgrade due next year. And you said with all these LED things and the lower consumption, we don't have to do that right now.
We don't have to put different power mains in or anything. Yeah.
So, overall, when you start looking at it, we are lucky in Milford that we can afford to do $80,000 for the library, and the financing was never an issue. For 5 years, we're going to float you. And then we start getting that 13.5 savings.
Which will be eaten up by the increasing costs of everything.
It's like when my children say, Dad, we went shopping and we saved you a lot of money. My wallet starts shaking.
Yeah.
But I mean, realistically, one way or another, the price would go up for electricity. The fact that we'll have 13.5 to offset the gain, we come out winning anyway.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. You know, you have that 13,000, it's going to be eaten up, but it's going to decrease the consumption, and it is also going to improve the lighting.
And that's the biggest thing. You're giving better quality.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we forget that there's a lot of people that this is their only way of doing the schoolwork that they'd like to do. You know, the school gives them
The Chromebooks.
the Chromebooks, but if they get stuck, you know, I remember growing up and my parents would do anything for me. You know, their whole objective in life was to make it better for me than they had it in the farms in Portugal. But if I ran into a problem with algebra, you know, my father would say, if you got a tool, I'll make it. But I don't understand the math. At least if I'm in the library, there's probably a good chance that some other kid is fighting the same battle.
Yeah, or we've got a book that may have the stuff
Or
in
you've
it.
got a parent who was a math teacher who would love nothing better than for a few minutes to help a kid again. Tell me about the famous fence. I got an email today from a former FinCom member, Mike Schiavi.
Yes.
And Mike reminded me about the famous fences. He says, it's karma, the fence is back.
Well, every so often there is a little blip in one's career. And mine would be the fence. About 2014, the fence that's right there right now, it is original to the 1986. It served its purpose, but it's starting to get splintered and we're having a problem, not really with security, people using it as a way to, you know, the old, the Rascal movies where they go through they flip up the
Right.
board and go through.
Go underneath.
Yeah, go underneath. We're having that happening and we're finding some debris that shouldn't be there. You know, we're not having a bad problem with maybe someone staying behind the library or anything like that, but we want it to be more secure and we want to make it look a little prettier than what we've got
Is
right
it getting
now.
better? In 14, we were scared to death. Let's call the ball because we found needles and very bad things
We've
back
been
there.
fortunate we haven't found anything like that lately.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's an issue in town, but we've been lucky we haven't had that many issues. You
Now, I
know,
heard there's nips back there.
yeah, I did use the word nips. You like that I used the word nips? Yeah,
Well,
the little bottles, you
The
know.
little bottles are expensive.
I know.
So we have affluent troublemakers.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, we find them back periodically, or we find something that someone may have stayed the night, you know, trash or whatever.
But you know, as much as I busted your chops, my hat got tipped when you said the price has gone up from 15. Now this was way back when.
Yes.
We could settle for something that we really don't think is optimal, or we can turn the money back to town meeting and trust that we can make a pitch in the future. That takes a lot of guts, because you could have ended up with no fence.
I know, but I felt that why waste the money on something that's not going to work for you? And then they'll say, well, she should have done, why didn't she do a better job back in 14? I didn't want that. I wanted to have a fence that would be good for us and would look presentable and, you know, be what we wanted to do, be, you know, deter stuff from happening.
But again, that's why I tip my hat. You have to have the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've come out and said, I have 100% confidence in town meeting. There's 200 odd people, not odd people, but 200 plus people that somehow, sometimes it's more painful than others, but I haven't seen them come to a bad conclusion.
No. And there's a lot of big things happening. I mean, you got the water company. I mean, you've got a lot of big things going on. And I think in other hands, it would not have gone as well as it has. It takes almost 8 years, but it, you know, but in government, that's pretty quick.
Yeah. And I mean, you think about it, this year we had a record year. We've been fortunate for the last, I want to say 14, maybe there was one year that we didn't have a big surplus. But we tend to try and put together a budget that hits 97%, which on 100 million, 127 million this year, leaves about 3.5, 4 million a year average that we can do things like we got ADA compliance that
Yep.
we hide behind the fact that the government's telling us we have to do it. Let's not kid ourselves. These are Milford people who need a little extra help.
We got new water fountains.
But see, it's all that stuff, and again, we hide behind, well, the government, Milford has always had a reputation for not, I won't say not caring, but not being bullied by the government. We do things when we think it's right. Sometimes it's more than the government requires, sometimes minimum. But I start thinking through all the things we've done. We debated on Pheno Pool. There's no logic to having Pheno Pool open. We got Casey Pool. For almost 20 years I fought the battle saying, but Casey Pool's not Milford.
Yeah.
No trees, sterile. I like Milford. It's got trees. It's got places to take my grandkids. We all grew up in it. Now spending $5 million, it's crazy, but it's Milford.
And there'll be benefits. Sometimes when you do something, you don't see the benefits right away.
No, but you're saving part of Milford. I always bring up the fact that if we did everything on logic, we would have knocked down Stacy School and put up an ugly glass building. It would have been so much cheaper. But that was all Milford granite. Mm-hmm. We squeeze everywhere we can so that when the day comes that we need to let our emotions take over, and Pheno Pool was another one. That's Milford.
All the swimming lessons that happened down there.
Well, it's terrible, and I apologize because it seems sexist, but you were a man back when we were kids, when you could swim across the whole pool.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you passed the test. You swam across that endless deep middle. We never knew it was 6 feet. To us, it was bottomless. And I'm sure that every boy, girl that grew up there has their own rite of passage, whether it was swimming to the pier, doing whatever. But, to me, the biggest memory I have is taking a 2-year-old into the water. And that's what made it exciting. To be able to vote on something to keep so that now my grandkids will have their memories.
What do you think about the dog park? That's going to be down there too?
Of course. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. Will we have a dog park? My bet, of course. People love doggies. Where it'll be, don't know.
And you've got the Frisbee golf going.
There's all sorts of things that we just keep. By keeping a good handle on expenses, we can splurge now and again. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's just like the library.
Well, since the renovation, we've replaced the air conditioning units. We've done the roof. We've done the front stairs. We have done carpeting. I've replaced the carpeting in the children's room. We replaced the carpeting in the community rooms. And I like the kind of carpeting because it doesn't show the stains. That was, you talk about saving money. I want to make sure it doesn't show the stains. If something happens, we have a rug cleaner that will take care of it, and you won't see it.
But the library it's suffering from its own success. Just like Sue Clark, down at the senior center. When people say, why are we replacing the carpets already? Because so many people are using them. And you think about all the traffic that you put through the library. That's exciting. Mm-hmm. The more the better. I'll be happy to fight for a few pennies here and there to put new carpet in earlier.
Yeah, I mean, we did take a hit during the pandemic, but we're coming back, and I think we're going to come back more. Once people get comfortable and they feel they want to come back to community spaces.
But my opinion, just one man's opinion, you're there to provide a service to the residents of Milford. You can't force it. The fact that you stayed open 50 out of 52 weeks, the fact that you've weathered the drive-by bookings, or whatever, you've adapted. And now that the community is saying we need to ramp it up a little bit, you're ramping up. That to me is success. I'm not going to look and say, well, at the height, when we had to read books uphill both ways, we had 200,000 people. Now we have 120. Wait a minute, we have 125,000 transactions. You divide that by 30, that's still 4 transactions average per person. I don't know of many other departments. Maybe Scotty with his plow. He reaches everybody. Highway department reaches everybody. Fire department, we hope that the chief doesn't reach anybody. That's the department that you hope sits home, but thank God we got him. The same with Chief Falvey at the police. There's certain departments that you want there and you hope you never use them. The library's one that has always been there.
Yeah, sometimes, people, if they don't see a lot of traffic and, you're not being well used, I say, it depends on the person, how they want to use it. And that's the pleasure of the library. You can decide if you want to use us digitally, you can use us as you're walking in. There's so many things you can do, and you make that choice.
But so, to me, it's more, libraries like IT, you only really notice it when there's problems. Mm-hmm. You think about it, I don't hear, over the decades, different towns have had problems that we don't have enough books, we're losing our accreditation, we're only open 30 hours or 28 hours a week. Crickets. I haven't heard any complaints. And let's face it, if you were shorting our kids, Milford parents aren't shy.
Well, maybe because of our success in Milford, the other surrounding towns say, go to Milford. You belong to the C.W. Mars Library Network. It's okay.
Yeah, I've heard that. Mm-hmm. And I have an answer that always gets me in trouble. If on the way to helping Milford kids, I got 4,500 kids in the school system. If on the way to helping them, I happen to help some kids from other towns, I guess the day I take the long bus ride, if that's the worst thing that gets thrown at me,
yeah,
I'm going to hope they don't hand me suntan lotion and it's hot. I want to go north. But you start thinking about it. I wouldn't be in favor of you spending money for programs that only benefited kids outside of Milford.
Yeah.
Because that's our tax dollars. But if you're spending 85-90% of the money to help our kids, so if a kid comes in from somewhere else?
No. To get state aid, you have to be open to anybody to walk in. They may not have borrowing privileges, but anybody that walks into your library should be able to have access to the materials that you have.
And again, that falls right back into, don't care what the state says. These are kids. Mm-hmm. As long as they're not taking away from Milford kids, God help us if we got so limited that we said, well, nobody's borrowing that book, but you can't have it because you're not from Milford. It just doesn't seem right.
Well, when you haven't been certified, that means you can't borrow through any of the library networks in the state. So if Milford was decertified, we could use ours. We could go into another library, but Hopedale and use the resources, but we couldn't borrow from them.
Yeah, you couldn't order books.
Couldn't do
anything. It
anything.
means I got to drive somewhere where you tell me, yes, the book you want is available in East Overshoe.
Yes.
Just drive there 2 hours.
Right. You can look at it, but you can't check it out because your town is decertified.
That's great. It's like showing me a gourmet meal saying you can look,
Yeah.
don't taste.
Don't taste, yeah.
But luckily, I don't think we've discussed it in the really bad years of budgeting. We've said we got to find at least X dollars.
Yeah.
But I don't think we ever had a serious discussion about being decertified.
I think before I got here, there was a couple of lean years. Everybody had lean years.
It got close.
Yeah.
And that was more that the library was going up as much as other, wasn't the 3% that was minimum?
2.5%. And I feel sometimes that's a little too much because a lot of libraries can't afford that. And they got smaller budgets. They don't have a base that they can draw taxes from.
But you know, at the end of the day, if you weren't helping all the kids, that in my mind is a legit argument. But we'll always find the money. You won't have a gold-plated sauna in your office for a long time.
The person next after me, right? And he'll get, that person will
Yeah,
get the
after you retire.
Yeah,
then
after
that-
you retire. We should have done it for her, but we'll give it to you.
But you know, at the end of the day, we're proud of our library. We're proud of the staff at the library. Because you also don't hear grumbles and growls and, at least publicly, no political turmoil.
No, the goal of any library is to be non-political. We help everybody. You know, some people may think that some of the books we buy have a certain bent, but it doesn't mean, it's what people want to read. And also, we can always get the books that you want from someplace else.
But you know, my problem with this whole movement of saying, you should read this, you shouldn't read that, wait a minute. I should have the right. If I don't like the book, I'm just not going to take it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's limits. You can't have really wild stuff, but I don't like the idea of censorship. It scares the living heck out of me.
No, if somebody wants a book, we'll do our best to find it for you, or we may add it to our collection.
You know, it kind of reminds me of taxes. It's always, I'm only going to tax them, and then it creeps.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with censorship. As long as you don't try and force me to read a book I don't want to, then I'm okay.
No, I have a lot of staff members that work so that, you know, that for advocacy for everybody. We have that's why we give out 20,000 items a year,
Wow.
because people like our collection. We have a good, solid, diverse collection.
Well, thank you. And to our 6 loyal viewers, if you haven't been down to the library, think about it. If you have grandkids, Legos. And if anybody hasn't noticed what Legos cost now, it's not the old $2 blocks.
Just go to our website. As everybody says, go to our website, milfordtownlibrary.org. Go over to our children's services area, and our newsletter's over there, and it'll tell you exactly what's going on.
Perfect. And as always, thanks for joining. To our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Thank you.
Far too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just searching for my soul.